All right, so April 11th, 10 o'clock, the FirstNet Colorado Alternative Plan pre-bid meeting being recorded. It will be put on our YouTube page as well.
Right. I want to thank you all for attending either in person or on the phone. Our purpose of this pre-bid meeting is basically, to share information about our process, about our intent, any questions that you might have, and honestly for ourselves to kind of gauge the interest, in the community. So with that, I would like to just kind of throw the question out there. Is there any questions on the process, the phase 1, phase 2? Our intent is to build a qualified pool of vendors, and then if the decision is made to go out to RFP, we've kind of already identified the group that would be able to fulfill the needs of the FirstNet opt-out scenario. We have given you all of the requirements, even for phase 2, so that you can be looking at those, contemplating those. We've done this in other solicitations that we've done, and we find it kind of gives the vendors a head start instead of like, oh gosh, we pre-qualified and then, oh, now we gotta, so at your, discretion, how much effort, research you put into those requirements is up to you. We do reserve the right to add additional requirements as they become known to us, possibly after we see the Colorado plan. There could be additional requirements that we would want to add. But for the most part, what you have right now is what we would be asking for in the RFP response. So with that, is there any questions about the process and how to with the RFP up? Any questions about the RFP template or terms and conditions? No? Do you want to just talk about our approach?
Yeah, okay. I'll enjoy it.
Yep.
So, yeah, there's no questions at this time. I'm going to let Brian Shepard, the Chief Operating Officer,
Whatever.
Oh, yeah, our person for take over and give you guys a little background.
Great. Well, thanks, everyone. We really appreciate your time and being here and your interest in our state plan alternative RFP. And just to give everyone some background as to what our thought process is, and to Judy's point, kind of the RFP process. It is our belief that this decision that will be made later this year is probably one of the more critical decisions in terms of public safety communications that will be made in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so our belief is that we need to approach this with great rigor and a thorough analysis, and making the decision is what is best for Colorado's first responders and Colorado's citizens. I know there's some debate about where kind of the overlap between the national objectives and our state objectives, but our perspective is our job is to do what's best for Colorado, and that is our intent with this process. Given that, obviously, we've had to operate within the structure of the FirstNet arrangement. There's a lot of information that we don't have that we would like to have even at this point. And so, we realize that this is perhaps a incomplete document and that we don't have everything, but we have everything. Given the time frame that we're going to have to review this process and the statute, we felt it was best to start moving forward, even with potential incomplete information from FirstNet on the objectives. And so, really, what our goals are here. The primary goal is to obviously fulfill the requirements if we choose to do this for a state opt-out plan. And develop the RAN in Colorado with our primary objectives. You'll see in the documents, we talk about coverage, sustainability, a lot of the similar issues that are in the national FirstNet objective. I think we do. The rural areas are something obviously we have an acute interest in, given the rural nature of our state. So we also do list some secondary objectives. Those are really, it is our perspective that to make this an opt-out scenario fully successful, we need to look at alternative objectives for this network. And we list them in there, such as intelligent transportation, next generation 911, education, healthcare, all the kind of cursory impact that a network such as this might have. We have no set standard or belief in how that implementation would look. That's one of the things we're looking for in responses, is to provide us some ideas on how you as vendors might implement that and you think that might play out. So those are kind of our primary objectives. Are the sample design we have, Signals Analytics, who we retained for the past several years, Emil Olbrook and Randy Linning, have developed the sample design. We've had some, folks kind of question what that is not set in stone. The purpose of that sample design was merely an exercise by us to prove to ourselves what is technically possible. It's a pretty aggressive geographic coverage rate. We realize that, and so that design is really meant to be a starting point and a template. If you believe that design is perfect, then just go from there. If you believe there's some positives in that design, but it needs some tweaking, let us know. If you believe that design is crazy and want to do your own thing, go for it. That it's really meant to be a starting point to show what we believe is possible in our state and kind of what we're looking for in terms of coverage and system. The numbers that you see there in the analytics in terms of first responders, again, those are extrapolated. Those are the exact same numbers we provided FirstNet. So while the sample design is a little bit different because we've made modifications to it from the time we submitted the data to FirstNet, the analytics, the numbers, the first responders, the extrapolations are the same exact numbers we provided to FirstNet. Those of you that are interested in the NDA, that data, the reason that it's sensitive data is we do have actual tower locations, and most of those towers are currently used in our public safety land mobile radio network. And so obviously we don't want to disclose those without some type of protection. So those assets are available there in that GIS shape file and various GIS files. And again, the purpose of there is just to show what is possible and what we have in our state. On that data, that is mostly state data that we've collected. There is some local jurisdictional data in there, but there are other additional assets that are owned by local jurisdictions in our state, but we don't have the authority to, or we really don't have the data at this point to do that. So there are additional assets out there that are not in that data package that could be in play from a local jurisdictional perspective. In terms of the timing, to go back to what Judy talked about, really our goal, we wanted the two-stage process in large part to be cognizant of your resources. Feedback we've heard from the vendor community over the past few years is that these types of processes do take time and resources and money on your part, and you don't want to spend money without a real chance of actually having there be a payoff. And so, as Judy mentioned, this first phase is really to kind of get a qualified pool of recipients. And our intention is to go through that process. We will have a review committee of folks from across the state, local and state jurisdictions from multiple disciplines, multiple levels of government that will review this. And once that pool is established of qualified applications or consortia, what our intention is as soon as we get our draft state plan from FirstNet and we kind of take a look at it, at that point we feel we will have a pretty good idea of whether or not this opt-out scenario is going to be a path we really want to go down. And so at that point, we would ask all those qualified vendors to come in for the stage 2 application. And the stage 2 process will look much like a normal RFP, where we will ask for detailed network design. We will ask for firm costs. We will ask for project rollout cycles. We will begin to talk about contracts and that type of function. So much more like a traditional actual RFP process. But again, we wanted to hold off on that because we know that's where the bulk of your expenses as vendors go, is building that type of response. And so we wanted to make sure that we are confident that this is something we honestly are considering before we ask you guys to spend your resources on that. So if we engage the stage 2, basically what we are saying is we honestly believe that the FirstNet plan does not meet most of our needs throughout the state, and that we are interested in this process of looking to opt out. One of the key provisions we do want to point out is, if we go down the opt-out route, we would expect the successful vendor to be with us during that journey of the process with the FCC, the NTIA, and the FirstNet spectrum lease negotiation. Obviously, we don't know what those processes look like because the FCC and the NTIA have not finalized that yet. So there's a little bit of risk there, I guess, but I think there's a little bit of risk there for all of us in this process. So that's really an overview.
What about talking just briefly about concerns, project 1 versus project 2.
Oh, thank you, Kim. Yes, so project 1 versus project 2, we have had some questions on that. A versus B, sorry, stage 1, stage 2, A versus B. So we broke the project up into 2 parts, knowing that comprehensive bids are likely, but we did not want to preclude any one entity from being part of this process. We felt that was one of the deficiencies of the FirstNet RFP, was that it pretty much eliminated a lot of folks from even considering getting involved in the project because of the massive scale of it and the way they structured that RFP. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to encourage anyone that had an idea about developing this network to be able to come in and offer up their idea. So we broke it up into the construction piece. So project A is literally the construction. That's the traditional engineering, building towers, hanging equipment on new towers, putting up antennas, putting fiber in the ground, going out and getting IRUs, actually physically constructing the network. The second project, project B, is the monetization and ongoing operations. And the reason we lumped in together the monetization and the ongoing operations was because we fully understand the monetization is going to be acutely tied with the financing of this process. And so if there's an entity responsible for the monetization of this, the operations and maintenance of that network are intrinsically tied to that monetization. And so we left those in place. We will not force anyone to do business with anyone they don't want to do business with. That is not our intent. Again, we encourage comprehensive bids for both projects, but don't want to eliminate any one bid. The other element we want to do is kind of make sure that we understand what the costs for building a network are. We've alluded it to, when you go buy a car, and if you can pay cash, you know exactly the price of the car you're paying. If you have to finance the car, they can kind of play games with your monthly payments and your interest rates and all this kind of stuff. You're not quite exactly sure the price of the car, the ultimate price of the car that you're paying for. And so we just want to be able to gauge that. But again, we will not force anyone to do business and partner with someone that they choose not to. So that's dispel that myth or that question that's out there. So anything else?
I would just add that Colorado is serious about this. I think there are a lot of states out there feeling like they have to do their due diligence to present something to their governor, but Colorado is serious. We're trying to solve not only huge problems for public safety and their data connectivity and the long term of where public safety communications is going as land mobile radio transitions to LTE, but we are serious. We are serious about getting a robust, unique, innovative proposal that will meet Colorado's needs and that we believe could be better than what FirstNet could provide based on what we saw with their RFP process. We're hopeful that FirstNet and their partner will provide us the network we've asked for. We asked for a pretty assertive, maybe even aggressive view of the network, but we thought it'd be irresponsible not to shoot for the moon on behalf of Colorado's public safety stakeholders and their citizens. So we aren't doing this to waste your time. We don't want to waste our time. We're doing this because we're serious about getting the best network for Colorado. So
yeah, I would emphasize that, and I think Kim's point about the importance of this network should be restated. That we do understand that this network will be the future of public safety communications. We realize this transition from LMR to LTE is going to take time. It is going to be different whether you're in a densely urban area versus if you're in a sparsely populated rural area. But we do realize the transition will probably occur faster than a lot of people think. So we are very acutely aware of the importance of this. And to Kim's point, we do feel this is a critical decision, so we are serious. And that's another good point. We are very interested in understanding how this network would be able to interface with our current public safety systems. And I emphasize systems. There are several LMO radio systems in our state moving forward. So that's another element of this RFP that we would really like to understand is how this transition will occur in our state and potentially how the development of this network can make that transition smoother for jurisdictions. We have a lot of jurisdictions that really struggle to pay for the current devices, $2,000 to $3,000 per device, and the idea of them being able to increase the utilization of LTE devices at a much lower cost is very, very appealing to them. So that's something in play. Michael, our lawyer here, brought up the point. There's been a lot of discussion about cooperative and states working together. We looked into potentially official type of cooperative language. Unfortunately, the procurement codes for WISCA and all those things are quite onerous and time consuming. And again, given the time constraints we have with FirstNet, we didn't have the ability to formally put in cooperative sharing agreements. But again, we have had conversations with other states. I think most people know that there's a group of Western states, our colleagues across the Western states that are discuss this issue a lot, and there's a lot of interest in potential regionalization approaches. Again, we don't have the authority to formally do some type of cooperative agreement, but I think as an overarching theme, the appetite for regional approaches, especially in the West, is there. And we would, again, be interested to hear from the vendor community about how we might implement this network so that our neighbors and our block mates, I guess, that California and Idaho and Oregon aren't really our neighbors, but the folks in similar situations as us might be able to capitalize on the efforts from this process. Anything else?
No, okay.
We'll just open it up to general comments, questions. On the group, on the phone as well.
Brian, Nick Hand from Macquarie, sorry.
Yeah.
We were trying to find the room and we
No problem.
got a little off. Just to dig into timing, my understanding is that Thursday have an obligation to deliver you a detailed state plan, and that should be in about 90 days' time. And then my understanding is you have 90 days to make the decision whether you opt in or opt out. So it always seems to us that that's quite tight for, a full-scale procurement of an opt-out. Maybe you could just talk to us a little bit about how that two-phase approach to your RFP fits in with that timing, or even if my understanding of that timing is correct.
So the timing is actually, so the initial major milestone is 6 months. So as the RFP requirement for FirstNet was that the partner AT&T has 6 months from the date of the contract to deliver the final state plan. So the contracts were signed March 30th. So the final state plans will be delivered no later than September 30th to our governor. And now FirstNet has indicated they will try to expedite that. I think that's pretty aggressive, 6 months for, the partner to get all their partners. I mean, everyone here, it's a lot of work. But I think we can anticipate, probably August, September-ish to have that final state plan. The delivery of that final state plan is what starts the 90-day shot clock for the governor. So again, our intention with the deadline of May 8th for the initial stage 1, we anticipate being able to turn those initial qualification folks around fairly quickly, so that by the June timeframe, and I'll say June-ish,
Thank you.
to satisfy Judy, that we would know who that group of qualified candidates is. We anticipate the draft state plan, so FirstNet has promised us a draft state plan.
Is there a date for that?
No. So the draft state plan is more nebulous than the final state plan. They have discussed, again, hinted, May, June timeframe for a draft state plan. Again, I think that's pretty aggressive, given the amount of work that has to take place, but that's kind of what we have to go on. So if we can anticipate a draft state plan, we've also been told there will be very little negotiation or change from the draft to the final state plan. So that's why we are using kind of that draft state plan as a primer, that once we get that draft state plan, we should have a pretty good idea of what the plan for Colorado is going to look like.
So you'll effectively make the decision whether to push the button on stage 2 of your procurement based on the draft state plan.
Exactly, and that's kind of where our timing is set. So we figure if we can have that pool of candidates by June, we anticipate that draft state plan in June, give us a little bit of time to kind of give it a once-over, analyze it, and then, we would hopefully push that button on stage 2 sometime in June. And then in terms of the time frame for the responses, as much as we would like to provide a robust amount of time for entities to do thorough review, again, we are under the time crunch of the statute. And so I think we would look to time the responses to stage 2 so that we can have a solid understanding of who a potential partner might be before we make the final choice to opt in or out. And I think we have the full 90 days to choose to opt in or out, and anticipate we might use all 90 of those days, for this process.
And you did just the sake of clarity, you'd anticipate having a, for want of a better word, a full fixed price proposal prior to the expiry of the 90 days. So that's what you're saying.
That would be our ideal situation. Again, we understand this is a pretty tight time frame for a project of this scope, and so we would shoot, yes, for full fixed price. By that point, if that's not possible, as close as possible to understanding the long-term cost. Because that ultimately, that's what we have to do. We have to make a decision and a recommendation to our governor, not just on what looks good on day one, but what looks good on year 20 or 25.
Maybe while I'm on a roll, and again, this is purely for clarification, my interpretation has always been that a state that opts out that provides the interoperable network has access to the dedicated spectrum. There have been some in the market who interpret it as opt-out states have to go their own way on spectrum. Do you have a position on that?
Yeah, the law is fairly clear that any state that opts out must negotiate a spectrum lease with FirstNet for the capacity to the spectrum. So any network that gets built in Colorado will be constructed using band class 14. Now, the parameters of that spectrum and the parameters of that use of the spectrum are part of this process that we don't know what it looks like, that final negotiation with FirstNet on the utilization of the spectrum. But no, the band class 14 will be made available to opt-out states. And another element in our RFP we put in there is we are interested in understanding what other spectrum assets are out there that could be combined and integrated with the band class 14 spectrum that we get from FirstNet.
And last one, I'd be very interested if you were able to expand a little bit on, specifically where you see the opt-out perhaps providing you with a better solution than FirstNet. But maybe as a prompt, one thing that we see is that FirstNet, in our opinion, is a bit of a top-down approach. We think a bottom-up approach working from the first responder community is more likely to be successful. What involvement will your process have with the Colorado first responder community? Will they be making any commitment to the opt-out process themselves? I guess the FirstNet rollout was always build it and kind of hope that the public safety community signs up. But will your opt-out process be different from a financial point of view from that perspective?
So, to your point, couple things. Yes, so our overall efforts in regards to not just FirstNet, but our overall broadband efforts have always been very focused on a grassroots level. Specifically to public safety is very used to a traditional model where the local jurisdiction or the state jurisdiction builds, owns, operates, maintains, and controls 100% their network. I think most people in this space understand that model really can't sustain itself from a public perspective anymore. And so we are looking for a different model. That said, I think swinging the pendulum all the way to a model where we are simply a customer and writing somebody a check for every month probably will not work either because of the impact of these communication systems and what is at stake when we talk about public safety and these communication systems in terms of the day-to-day functionality. The story I like to tell, and I think there's a recent article one of our board members, our governing body, a rural sheriff discussed. I think a lot of the discussion about this nationally has been about 9/11 and Katrina and the terrible events of those days. But on a day-to-day basis, if you ask a rural sheriff deputy what the scariest moment they have, it's when they get called out to a local domestic violence call and they park their car and they know they have to walk 3/4 of a mile up to the house and they have no communications. And they have no idea what situation they're walking into. They don't know who's in the house. They don't know what's in the house. All they know, they're walking into an explosive situation and they are on their own and they have no communications. So I think our perspective is those events that happen 99.9999% of the day are critical to us, and that does involve some local control. Now, in terms of local jurisdictions. Colorado is a home rule state, which means the functional aspects of all governmental decisions goes to the lowest level of government, whether that be a municipality, a county, or the state in some situations. And so the state alone cannot sustain this network. The number of state first responders compared to local first responders is a fraction. So any ultimate opt-out implementation would require significant buy-in and commitment from local jurisdictions, both large and small, urban and rural. And that is one of the elements we are interested in understanding, is how the implementation of an opt-out network would be able to promote that and encourage local jurisdictions to sign up for the commitments that are necessary to implement something of this scale.
I think the other thing I would add is that as part of our state plan assessment process for the plan that FirstNet provides, we will be doing a comprehensive outreach campaign, including tools that local agencies will be able to use to roll up to their regions to give us an indication of adoption of the FirstNet plan based on what FirstNet provides over their 5-year deployment. So that will be visible to us as we make a decision as well. And depending on where we are in the procurement process, that information could be shared. Right. You know, yeah.
The other thing I'd like to just mention is if you want the additional information packet, please sign and return the NDA. You know, some of you in the room have and haven't. I just want to make sure that that offer is out there. Also, I've gotten questions from vendors wanting to know if they have to participate phase 1 to participate phase 2, and the answer is yes. We can't, you know, you can't just participate in the RFP. So we're trying to mitigate, you know, your use of resources by qualifying first, but you do have to participate in phase 1 to be considered. So I just want to make sure everybody.
And one question on that. We realized, again, the scope of this will likely require a group of organizations working together in a consortia-style environment. For phase 1, we don't expect formal agreements in place with every member of your consortia. Yep. We would expect you to be able to identify and discuss how each member of that group or consortia will work together to solve the ultimate problem. Going to phase 2, by the time we get to phase 2, we would expect to understand what the formal arrangements between the consortium members are. But just to clarify that, for this stage 1, we realize that's not nearly enough time to put formal agreements together between large organizations. So just to make sure that everyone understands that.
Yeah, but identify your partners.
Yes. Yep.
Any other questions?
Additional questions?
Along those lines, so we can maybe go around the room and get introductions as to who's participating.
Sure, and I'll also publish that was weird. Publish the attendee list as an attachment to the RFP. So I can start to Giovanni, OIT purchasing agent.
Terry Holmes, Connected Nation Exchange.
Monica Aiken, Bureau Wireless.
Wes Horn, CenturyLink.
Garrett Doyle, AT&T.
Nick Hannon with Macquarie.
Jesse Hope, Macquarie. Brian Wagner with Mammoth Networks. Lane Feingold, Motorola Solutions.
Mike Hancock, contract admin here at OIT. Brad Shepard, OIT.
Kim Coleman-Madsen, OIT.
Andrew Diller, OIT purchasing agent.
And then I'll just, instead of calling, I'll just go through who's on the phone, if that works. Karen White with CTC, Wes Burnett with Viero, Emma Olbrich and Randy Looning, who are our consultants. Jeff Brown with Viero, Megan Chadwick, Ed Mills, and Sarah Smith, who are with OIT. Phil Ramey with FirstNet, Rishi Bhaskar with Ericsson, George Glenaspis with American Tower, Neil Fitzpatrick with Macquarie, I think.
Will Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Will, sorry, my error. Yeah, and then there might be a few others who haven't identified themselves. Yeah.
Right. And I'll publish the attendee list with, email addresses if there's opportunity for networking or partnering. That's the intent.
Additional questions from anyone?
Brian, do you know yet, when you negotiate the use of the spectrum, will the excess capacity come with that, or will AT&T retain that in the state?
That would be really great to know, wouldn't it?
It really would.
Yes, it would. It is our belief that the law allows for the state to retain most, if not some, of the excess capacity of that spectrum. FirstNet has been unclear on that. That could potentially be an element that we would look for our partner to join us in that discussion. Now, in terms of roaming agreements, I think any partner of Colorado in an opt-out scenario would need to ensure, obviously, that there is roaming and interoperability with AT&T as the national carrier. But in terms of that excess capacity, it is our perspective, again, that the law is clear that a state that opts out has access to that spectrum. We don't understand, we don't know yet because they have not told us what those guidelines are, but that will be a journey we will take at that, a bridge we'll cross at that point.
FirstNet to date has indicated that a lot of these questions will be answered in the state plan. We don't know if that means they will be answered in the draft state plan. We don't know if they'll wait until the absolute last minute based on cementing their legal interpretations in a formal state plan to a governor or not.
Yeah. So, as a rule of thumb, I mean, we anticipate FirstNet making this as difficult as possible for a state to opt out. So that's just kind of, again, if this process continues and we do choose to go down this path, we expect several barriers to come into place. But again, to Kim's point, if this is the path we feel is best for Colorado, we are determined to make sure that what is done, what is best for Colorado's first responders is implemented. So.
Any other questions or comments?
Were there any questions from the phone?
Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to give you back a half hour of your life. You know, there should be no parking tickets because of me today. So if you went on your way out, just go ahead and check out with the front desk. That would be great. And thank you all for attending.
Any future questions, please make sure you pass them to Judy. Do not